You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for part 2 of our show, where we are going to be previewing the World Test Championship final. The game will be taking place at the Oval in South London, and it will feature Australia and India. And I think, Max, is the first question to get us off the mark. The two blockbuster teams in Test cricket at the moment. We've got England as the young upstarts doing something a bit different, but the teams with the bona fides, the Palme d'Or, as they would say in cycling, it's India, it's Australia,
it's El Clasico.
Yeah, it is El Clasico. This is 1v2 in the world. Are you looking forward to it?
Big time, yeah. What makes me look forward to it more is that it's in England, obviously. Not necessarily just the fact that it's at the time zone and we can watch it and all the rest of it, but just the fact that it's a bit of a leveler, isn't it? Both sides have got players that will work really well with English conditions with the seam bowling. Both sides have got players who might have to knuckle down a bit with the bat and might not necessarily be as comfortable batting in England as they would be at home. And that makes it a nice, I'm not going to say fair fight, but a fairer fight than either if it was India and Australia or Australia and India, as we've seen in recent seasons. Obviously, India did beat Australia anyway, but
exactly.
It's you don't have the opportunity of skewing things one way or the other, so it'll be a nice little battle, hopefully.
Right, let's we'll do team news from both sides, and then we'll make, I guess, some predictions. I'm going to run through what I predict to be the India 11, and I think there's one spot where there's probably serious debate.
Yeah.
So we've got Rohit Sharma; he'll be captaining the team. That isn't a debate. I don't know why I paused there. Shubman Gill, Pujara, Virat Kohli, Rahane, Jadeja, KS Bharat keeping wicket, Shardul Thakur, Shami, Siraj, and Umesh Yadav. Now, obviously, I think most of them, probably 10 of the names there, are pretty confirmed.
Yeah,
they could do something wild with the wicketkeeper, maybe. There's maybe a small debate about Rahane, but I think it'd be very small, and I think you'd have to be a bit nuts to suggest somebody. What would you
do? Play KS Bharat and Ishan Kishan?
Well, I don't know. Something weird like that. Bring in an extra bat. Bring in one of the standby players. They've got like Surya Kumar Yadav on standby. Maybe you could do something wild like that. I think they're pretty clearly not going to do that. The debate is Shardul Thakur. It's whether you go with him, whether you go with Unadkat, or whether you go with Ashwin. Now, Max, you know my India predicted 11. I've just read it to you.
Yeah.
Do you agree with my assessment of where the debate is, and who would you pick?
My assessment is your assessment. I agree, and I think they will. Well, I think they will pick Shardul Thakur. I would pick Ravi Ashwin. That's where I stand on it. I don't think they're going to pick Ashwin because they'll still be burnt from the New Zealand World Test Championship final last year when they did, and then it went wrong, and then they didn't pick him for when they played England. They didn't play Ashwin in any of the tests in the England series 2 years ago, when arguably they should, even though they were the better side. But we still think picking Ashwin would have been the way to go. And as we've already said at least twice so far on this podcast, Australia have a lot of left-handers, and Ravi Ashwin would be a good option from that point of view as well. So I'd like to see Ashwin play. Partly because it's Ashwin and would like to see him play. It's bloody Ravi Ashwin. He's great, but I think they'll go with Shardul. I can't see Unadkat coming in just because it leaves them so open with the tail. So I think that's probably where I'm sitting. But they just don't seem to like playing Ashwin in England, do they? For some weird reason.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I have some sympathy with. I think India's ideal 11, and this is maybe where we need to talk about why Umesh Yadav is like a nailed-on starter and not somebody better. But I think with India's best attack when Bumrah is playing, then it kind of makes sense, I think, because then basically all of your seamers then become better in the position that they're playing in. Then your fourth best seamer is suddenly Siraj,
Yeah.
or Umesh Yadav. And I think that it makes sense to have just Jadeja, because I think you can do what they did to England in the series a couple of years ago, where basically they just terrorized the England lineup. Now, it was a bad England lineup, but I think from an India point of view, it was the best attack I'd seen them bring to England, and I thought it did pretty well. I think the debate here really isn't around whether this is the best way to line up in England. I think it is. I think if you have a spin bowling all rounder who's as good as Jadeja, you do not need to pick another spinner. You just, you ride or die with him as your man. I do think that you are maybe reaching the point of diminishing returns from this approach when you're picking a seamer who's some way down your depth chart because Jasprit Bumrah is injured. And I think he's an absolutely colossal loss. King Legend hurting himself, and a couple of other batters going down. Even Rishabh Pant to some extent, brilliant player as he is, and a fantastic person to have as your number 6, and Gloveman doesn't damage them as much as having Bumrah out in terms of the best way for them to set up their team, and in terms of how easy or not they are to replace. And because of that, there is a serious debate about whether they will go with Ashwin. I think they will go with Thakur, and I think they've tipped their hand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either choice is a massive deal breaker. I think just for me, obviously, that you've got to balance who's the better player over what's the better way to set up in England. Obviously, you're not really going to go with 2 spinners generally in England. It's very unlikely to do. But the skill level of Ashwin at what he does compared to Shardul Thakur, who he has his moments where he does crazy things. So why not pick him in the hope that he'll have one of those days? That's I guess an approach you can take as well. But like you say, in terms of how Shardul Thakur compares to other seamers and how Ashwin is basically the best in the world, I think you just want to pick the guy who's literally the best at doing what he does, even if the conditions aren't necessarily ideal for it. And it's at the Oval, and the Oval tends to go later in terms of Test matches. It will probably get to a 4th or 5th day, and you might get a bit of turn. It's been dry and sunny lately in the UK, so there's an opportunity potentially for a bit more purchase from the spinners as well. So more so at the Oval, you'd go Ashwin over doing it at Lords as well. So there's that to think of as well.
Look, I do think that's sort of fair. I would probably pick Ashwin because I really don't think Shardul Thakur is very good, and I also think that the Oval, as you say, it can go later into the game. Often that doesn't necessarily mean it spins more. What it means is that it's a bit flat for day 1, day 2, and day 3. And I think specifically where Shardul Thakur is bad is when he isn't getting the ball to nibble around. Now, Shardul Thakur, he actually isn't a bad bowler. He's got the wobble seam. Exactly. He's a bit of a figure of fun, but he's that delivery, but that he can bowl the wobble seam would probably put him ahead of Ashwin at 3 or 4 of the other venues that you play at in England, and probably some other destinations in the world. If this was in the West Indies, I'd probably want Shardul Thakur. If this was in South Africa, I would want Shardul Thakur. I think the conditions at the Oval, I would pick the best flat pitch bowler, and I think that is Ashwin, who also happens to be the best of the 2. But I think it's relatively marginal. Should we talk about the opposition?
Yes. So
Australia, that's what their name is.
Australia.
Do you want to do your 11, and I will argue with you?
Yeah, I think their 11 probably picks itself, but we'll see if you can come up with some kind of devil's advocate for me. But we've got Warner, Khawaja, Labuschagne, Smith, the forgettable Travis Head, Cameron Green, Carey, Cummins, Stark, Lyon, Boland.
Yeah, there's no debate there, is there? They've got like Marcus Harris around for drinks carrying duties. Now, there was a serious debate after the India series about whether Warner will keep his place, and I think he sort of answered that by saying, "I'm going to retire in the Australian summer after the Pakistan series, or retire from Test cricket rather." So I don't. Well, he's definitely going to play in this match. Whether he lasts the Ashes is what we don't know, do we? But he'll pretty much certainly be in this test. And I think obviously they'd have gone with Hazelwood in the side had they the opportunity to do that. He's got no one's really sure what's wrong with him. I've heard two things: ankle or Achilles. Yeah, I guess that's and side. Apparently his side is uncomfortable.
Oh, that's not a great combination for a fast bowler, is it? Ankle, Achilles, and side. That's a few things you need.
He's a big guy and he does suffer from injuries. Great bowler when he's fit. But yeah, I mean, like if you look at the two sides overall, I think Australia are bringing more of their big weapons to the party than India are. They've not been hit quite as hard by injury. From an India point of view, the injuries look like they would be far more damaging when they happened than they kind of do now. Now you're looking at Rahane and thinking, well, he's having a late
on
career
the back of his IPL
here. Yeah. And you look at Shubman Gill and you're thinking, what an upgrade on King Legend. But pre-IPL, you'd probably have found most people would tell you that KL Rahul will be the opening batter. And there's nobody else really in that conversation in a serious way.
But
and
even bowling wise,
Rishabh Pant is obviously knocking Rahane out of the team, but that is still the truth. And
Rahane was playing Test cricket not that long ago, so
he's knocking Bharat out the side. But it's
I think that's the one
weakness.
The one obvious weakness for me. I think KS Bharat's obviously not played many tests, and obviously it's in England as well, so that's going to be a bit of a different experience. There's a potential, issue there, but I mean the rest of them, they're long in the tooth. They know what they're doing. And the bowling, Umesh Yadav's decent in England. He's got a good record in England. Shami is phenomenal in these conditions, and Siraj is just it's just so much fun, so exciting. So I mean that trio is great. I think if you put Bumrah in there, then it's a really, really good tussle. But I think as it is, Australia do shade it with what they've got. I mean, Green, Cummins, Stark, Boland. It's fairly relentless, I reckon.
Yeah, I think Test matches in general, and probably more so in England, and we saw this with the Ireland Test that we were talking about earlier, very often decided by who has the best all-round bowling attack. There is a big drop-off from Bumrah to whoever you replace him with. If you replace Bumrah with Shami, there's a big drop-off. If you replace Bumrah with Shardul Thakur, it's devastating the damage that does to your bowling lineup. And I think that is probably where I would highlight the difference and where I would say that Australia are the favourites. Now, I would say it's a one-off test, and I think Australia are 60-40 favourites probably.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say much beyond that, and the main reason for that is Bumrah, to be honest. But I do think that does make them the favourites. I also think
mathematically it does. Yeah,
Cummins was talking about whether he said he would rather be undercooked than overcooked coming into the series, and potentially you take the Joe Root view, as he said in the paper today, like the IPL's great preparation for the Ashes. Maybe you'd say that the recent intense cricket that India have been playing will stand them in good stead versus Pat Cummins, who's had a long taper to this series, and it might not even be Pat Cummins' priority and Stark's priority and Boland's priority for the Southern. They might be looking to peak in 3 weeks' time in the middle of an Ashes series. So there's potentially that angle that you'd look at, but I would look at that the other way. I would say I want a fresh Cummins, a fresh Stark, a fresh Scott Boland.
Yeah,
all going to be pretty decent in these conditions.
maybe if Australia win the toss or lose the toss and bowl first, then Pat Cummins' first 6 overs are a bit wayward because he needs to blow the cobwebs off. And then his second spell is, fire.
Yeah, they won't be. I think they'll be pretty decent. And that batting lineup, it looks good. Yeah, there's a couple of other weaknesses. If you were going to really dig deep, you'd maybe say Travis Head not nailed it in England so far, and in county cricket's got quite a poor record. Cameron Green seems to be one of these guys that takes a little while to adapt to a new thing. He didn't smash it from ball one in the IPL. Took him, a few weeks to find his feet. Same when he came into Test cricket, it wasn't immediate his impact. Maybe in new conditions he'll need a while to bed in. And then Warner, we don't really know what we're going to get out of Warner, do we?
No.
So there are some chinks there, but then you look at
they've got Labuschagne
Smith, and you're like, well, I would rather have them than any of the Indian players, to be honest.
With any luck for India, Steve Smith will just be on the end of another horrendous bit of umpiring like he was at Sussex to send him on his way, and they won't have any reviews left.
So there, predictions. What are you saying? You're saying Australia are going to win?
I think Australia will win.
I
think it will. Don't know if it will go for 5 days. I think it might be a 4-dayer.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Australia as well. I think there are ways for India to win, but there are fewer of them. I think there are more things I can imagine in my mind happening in this match that benefit Australia than India. So I'm going to go with them. We should do a weather report, shouldn't we? Because that's a thing. There's 6 days, so there's a bonus day.
Oh, is there a backup day? All right.
Yeah, there's a bonus day. Wednesday, no rain. Thursday, no rain. Friday, no rain. And then the rain spectre starts to potentially come into play. There is rain scheduled for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so including the extra day.
Saturday looks okay.
Not loads of rain. Yeah, that's what I would say. If there's going to be rain on one day, Sunday afternoon, it looks a bit iffy. But it's basically pointless predicting the weather in this country that far. We're quite sure, I would say, sitting here right now, that the weather will be good on Wednesday. After that, anything could happen. It's all there's got some snow.
And if you use BBC weather, it'll tell you it's sunny, and you look outside and it's pissing it down.
Yeah, exactly. Max, anything else on this cricket match?
No. I think just looking forward to it, really.
Yeah, me too.
Be good.
We had 3 questions in, and we'll do them all to wrap up the show. G says, and this goes back to the England-Ireland game, should McBride and Adair's partnership be a cause for concern for England? Does it highlight the importance of selecting a genuine quick bowler in every 11? Does that make Josh Tongue the answer?
Well, I think I don't think he did himself any harm, did he, Josh?
I didn't think he bowled very fast.
He was high 80s, wasn't he? Allegedly he touched 90 at one point. He's not fast enough to be the point of difference that we're talking about in this question. That's the thing. But I think it's a reasonable point. I mean, it is an issue that England have had in the past when the ball goes a bit soft. I mean, it's just the nature of cricket, isn't it? When the ball goes a bit old and doesn't do as much, you need something else, and usually that's just extreme pace or reverse swing, and you weren't really going to get any, or a spinner, and that didn't happen. So maybe it's a concern, but hopefully Mark Wood will be back.
I would say it is, but I think England will be happy with how that ball behaved, because they will cash in those situations far
possibly
better
more so
than any other team. They're fine if teams average 50 between overs 40 and 80, because they will average 50, but they'll do it at 4 and over. And England will average, they might only average 40, but they'll be doing it at 7. And the added runs you gain in that spell will outweigh, the
runs you concede. Yeah.
And England with the new ball at home is still pretty good. Kufak says, how many sessions will it take for India to lose? Also, is every World Cup Test Championship final till the end of time taking place in England? So that's 2 separate questions. How many sessions will the match last, Max?
I think it will last 12.
I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think it'll be 4 days. Might get into the 5th day.
I think in terms of the result being a foregone conclusion, it might last 8 or 9.
Yeah, it could. You might know by the end of day 2 who the likely winner is. I think so. That's potential. Why is the World Test Championship final in England? Well, that's because they sell tickets. That's basically what it is. Now, obviously, if India were in the World Test Championship final at home, they would sell out. But I don't know if Australia v New Zealand would sell out in India. That would definitely. People in England, love going to watch sport. It's a cultural thing, I guess, and they'll pack out the stadium pretty much regardless of who it is if they put the word final next to it. I think the other thing is that don't people have to bid for it, and because of things like hospitality packages and stuff like that, it's a very attractive thing to host if you're Lords, if you're the Oval, or you're Edgbaston, because you can sell.
Sell some even if it's some big bucks,
even if it's 2 sort of lower ranked teams, you can sell out those boxes and make an absolute fortune. That isn't necessarily the case in every other nation's venues. They might be able to sell tickets, but they might not make enough for it to be a really attractive commercial opportunity. Because of corporate sales, you'll always have that in England. So I think that's effectively why it is. I think you're more likely. I think there's a decent chance you'll see one go to like the UAE, one of those grounds. This is the sort of event that they'll pointlessly bid for and destroy.
Completely ruin the concept.
Yeah. Odd Man says, final one. Do you think IPL form carries into tests? Will Virat or Gill show it in the World Test Championship?
I think there's a level of confidence that will transfer. If you equate that to form, then yes, I'm looking forward to seeing how Shubman Gill kicks on from the IPL for sure.
I will say sort of. I think it might for Virat, but Virat's T20 game's much closer to his Test game than Shubman Gill's is. I'm not saying it won't happen in this Test. It might, but we haven't had a proper breakout from Shubman Gill in Test cricket yet. I would say we've had signs that he's good. What did he get? 95 at the Gabba. That's a pretty big innings. Rishabh Pant obviously did some stuff that means we forget that a little bit. It was a pretty good innings. And I think he's got, didn't he? He's got a few runs at home. Clearly a really, really, really good player. But I think at this moment in time, you probably still have Virat as a better player.
But it wasn't that long ago, was it? It wasn't that long ago that we were saying Shubman Gill hasn't really done enough in T20s to be considered it. And then he scored 100% hundreds and made it
like could 100% happen in this match. But I having seen what Virat's been through in the last 3 years, we know that he is a generational great in terms of Test match cricket. If you last 15 years, Virat Kohli is in your World 11. Yeah. He had a slump in form, and now he's recovered some of that form, and we've seen that in the IPL. And I think there's reasons to believe that his cricket in general and his mindset are in a good place, and that makes me more confident that he will score runs than Shubman Gill, who is a man who is yet to have Virat Kohli's career. Now he may well be in 15 years' time one of the guys we say generational great. We don't know that yet. So if you're going to ask me, I've made that a question of who's better, Gill or Virat, which I don't think is really what the question was. But
it's always nice to twist things a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's going to be fun to see both. One of them could play a statement innings. That's one of the ways that India can win. One of them gets 150 and goes down in history for finally getting over the line in an ICC tournament. It was the first time in 15 years or 12 years, whatever it is. That's it, Max. We're done with the podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. Find us at Patreon. We had a new Patreon sign up, so thank you to whoever you are. Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod for bonus shows and extra stuff. We'll be back. I think we're going to try and do a show after day one, and then it's in Ross's hands because Max and I are going on holiday.
Yeah. So we'll leave you in his capable hands.
All right. Bye, everyone.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.